All right, so when you're writing an equation in point slope form, okay, they're going to give you the value for m. They'll either say m equals, or you can see in this one, they'll tell you what the slope is. And then anytime you have a point, I want you to label that as your x1, y1. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to write this equation out. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so they gave you three things. Okay, you're going to plug this in for m, this in for x1, this in for y1. Are we plugging anything in for y? Did we label anything just y? Nope, we only have the y1. So this is y minus, your y1 is 1, your m is 2, okay, and again, I don't have anything labeled for x, but I do have x1 is 1/2, okay, and for this, you don't even have to simplify it, okay, you're going to leave it just like this. Okay, eventually we are going to be able to simplify, but if you have in point slope form, you don't have to simplify. Right, so your answer is the equation. All right, now for B, they say the slope is 0. So if they tell you it's the slope, you have to know that the slope is the value of m, and just like we did last time, your point is always x1, y1. The x always comes first. Okay, and again, we're going to take this equation, y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. Okay, and then we're going to plug in our values. So the only thing you are not plugging anything in for is going to be the x and the y. Now when you plug in a negative here, make sure that you have the minus and negative. We are going to change that. If you have minus and negative, it becomes what? Yep, so we'll do that in the next step. So it will become y plus 4. Your m is 0. This is x minus 3. If it's not a minus and negative, you don't have to change it. Okay? And then this is your final answer. Okay, so minus a negative is the same thing as plus a positive. Okay, so you must simplify that. That's the only thing that you're going to have to simplify here. So if you have the double negative, you're going to change it to plus. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do is write an equation, but this time it says write an equation in slope-intercept form. That's what we were doing last week. If it's slope-intercept form, that's when you have y equals mx plus b. Okay, and then you can see I'm doing some annotating here, which is something you probably do a lot in your English classes. When it says write an equation, the reason why I'm underlining that is so I know my answer is going to be an equation. For slope-intercept form, I'm writing out the y equals mx plus b, so I know how I want my equation to look. And then if they tell you that the slope is negative 3, my annotation would be m equals negative 3. Because I know that my slope is going to go in for m, And then what do you guys think I'm going to put on my point? How am I going to annotate that? Every point is labeled as what? X and Y, right? And then with this one, we're going to be labeling it as the X1, Y1. So when you have a point, this is going to be X1, this is going to be Y1. Okay, so these are the three things you're plugging in. M is -3, X1 is -2, Y1 is 4. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are first going to write this in point slope form. So step 1 is write in point slope form. That's your first step. So I'm going to write out the equation, and then I want you to plug in these three values here. Okay, so about half of you knew how to plug those in. Okay, so when you're plugging in values, okay, keep the y minus, and then if it's 4, you're going to substitute that in. You're always keeping it y minus x minus, and then you're plugging in these values here. So m is -3. I'm going to put that in for m. Okay, x1 is -2, so that goes here. 4 is going to be here. Now we can simplify. So it's y minus 4 equals -3, and then minus a negative is going to turn into plus. Okay, that's your first step. Your second step is going to be using the distributive property to simplify. So step 2, use distributive property. To simplify. Okay, use the distributive property to simplify. Okay, so we're going to write out our equation from our last step. Okay, and then when you do this in your notes, it will look a little shorter because you won't have to write out what your step is, right? You'll just plug them in and you'll do the distributive property. But when you're distributing, what am I going to do with the -3 and the x and the -3 and the 2? What do you do with those? How do I distribute? Yeah, you're going to multiply. So -3 times x is -3x. -3 times 2 is going to be -6. Okay, now if you're trying to put this in the form y equals mx plus b, that's going to be your last step. And this one is so close. I have y minus 4 equals -3x minus 6. The only thing I have to do is get y by itself. So if I have y minus 4, I have to move over this minus 4. How do I move that over to get y alone? How do I move over a -4? Just add it. Yep. Okay, so you have y equals -3x minus 2. Okay, and then this is your final answer. Okay, y equals -3x minus 2. So you have that in slope-intercept form.